violet horizons. The grand observatory of Novastria gleamed like a crystal crown atop the highest spire of the imperial city. Arya stood motionless before the vast viewing panel that overlooked the sprawling metropolis below her home for 27 cycles, or what humans might call 150 years. "Your Radiance," said Kai, her personal attendant, with a deep bow. "The Earth delegation has arrived. The Emperor requests your presence in the reception hall." Arya turned slightly, her violet skin catching the light of the 3 moons that orbited their world. Her silver eyes regarded Kai with practiced indifference. "Tell my father I will join shortly. I need a moment to prepare myself for the stench of humans." When Kai departed, Arya let her shoulders fall. She pressed her palm against the cool glass and sighed. The truth was, she had been anticipating this day with secret curiosity. Humans fascinated her, though such interest would be considered vulgar among the Novastrian elite. "They are primitive creatures," her father had often said, "useful for labor and simple tasks, but little else. Their emotions make them unpredictable, dangerous." Arya smoothed the flowing fabric of her ceremonial robes and made her way toward the reception hall. Her long silver hair was braided with precious stones that chimed softly with each step. She had been trained since birth to project absolute control. Novastrians prided themselves on emotional discipline, seeing it as the mark of true civilization. The reception hall doors parted silently before her. The gathered court immediately bowed their heads as she entered. The Earth delegation stood awkwardly at the center of the room. 5 humans looking uncomfortable in the higher gravity of Novastria. "Ah, daughter," Emperor Thraw said, extending his hand. "Come welcome our guests from the blue planet." Arya approached with measured steps, her face a mask of royal composure. The leader of the human delegation, a tall woman named Sarah, began introducing her companions. "Your Imperial Majesty and Your Radiance, may I present Dr. Jin Chen, our chief xenobiologist." And then it happened. As Dr. Chen looked up from his bow, his eyes met Arya's. Something in his gaze, a warmth and openness she had never seen in her own kind, made her pause. Her carefully practiced greeting died on her lips. "Your Radiance." Dr. Chen said, his voice gentle. "It is an honor." Arya felt her heartbeat quicken. "The honor is mine, Dr. Chen," she replied, her voice betraying the slightest tremor. "I understand you have studied our atmospheric compositions." "Yes." He smiled. "Your world is as beautiful as the legends describe." Emperor Thraw raised an eyebrow at this informal exchange. "The delegation will be shown to their quarters," he announced. "Princess Arya, perhaps you would arrange a tour of the Science Academy for our visitors tomorrow." "Of course, Father," she replied, still looking at Dr. Chen. Later that evening, Arya stood once more at her observatory window. Her thoughts kept returning to the human scientist, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the subtle defiance in his posture. How different he was from the court nobles who pursued her with calculated precision. "Cooper," she said to her digital assistant, "show me the file on Dr. Jin Chen." A holographic display appeared showing his credentials and history. Born in New Singapore on Earth, brilliant career in xenobiology, divorced, selected for the mission because of his revolutionary paper on cross-species communication. "Interesting," Arya whispered, touching the image lightly with her fingertip. Something about this human stirred feelings she had been taught to suppress her entire life. And for the first time she wondered if, perhaps, the greatest wisdom of the Novastrian Empire might also be its greatest lie. She made a decision. Then, as heir to the throne, she had never been allowed to follow her curiosity. But something about Dr. Chen made her willing to risk it tomorrow. She would show him the Science Academy, and perhaps discover what it meant to feel like a human. Forbidden whispers. The Science Academy's crystalline dome glittered under the twin suns of Novastria. Dr. Chen stood transfixed by the spectacle of students manipulating gravity fields with mere gestures. His expression of wonder made Arya smile, despite herself. "This is remarkable," he whispered. "On Earth we theorized such technology might be possible, but to see it actually working." Arya glanced around to ensure they weren't being closely observed. Would you like to see something few outsiders have witnessed, Dr. Chen? She asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. Please call me Jin, he replied. And yes, I would be honored. Follow me, Jin, Arya said, testing his name on her tongue. It felt strangely intimate. She led him through a hidden passage that spiraled downward beneath the academy. The air grew warmer, filled with the scent of living things. Jin gasped as they emerged into an enormous garden filled with bioluminescent plants that pulsed with colors he had never seen. The ancestral gardens, Arya explained. These are the original flora from our homeworld before we engineered them for efficiency. These plants grow wild, following their own patterns rather than our designs. Jin moved closer to a flower that seemed to reach toward him. They respond to emotions, Arya said, watching his fascination. Something we Novastrians pretend not to have. Yet you brought me here, Jin observed, looking directly at her. Why? Arya felt something flutter in her chest. Because I wanted to see how they would respond to you. She hesitated. And because I wanted a moment away from being watched. For several weeks afterward, Arya created reasons to meet with Jin. Official tours became private walks. Formal dinners became opportunities to sit beside each other, speaking in low voices about their worlds. We're taught that humans are ruled by their emotions. Arya confessed one evening as they stood in her private observatory that your feelings make you weak and unpredictable. Jin considered this. And what do you think? I think, she said carefully, that perhaps feeling deeply isn't weakness at all. It might be a different kind of strength. Jin took a risk and reached for her hand. His fingers brushed against hers. In our history, we often feared what we didn't understand, he said. Many Earth cultures once thought emotional control was the highest virtue too, but we learned that suppressing emotions doesn't eliminate them. It only drives them underground, where they grow stronger in the dark. Arya didn't pull away from his touch. That's dangerous talk in the imperial court, she whispered. Especially for the heir to the throne. Is that all you are? Jin asked. An heir? Their faces were close now, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. I don't know anymore, she admitted. Before you came, I was certain of my path now. She looked down at their joined hands, violet against tan. Now I find myself questioning everything. Arya Jin's voice was soft, but she could hear the emotion behind it. I need to tell you something. The treaty negotiations aren't going well. Your father's advisors, particularly Commander Rena, are pushing for restrictions that Earth cannot accept. There's talk of breaking off relations completely. Fear flickered across her face. If that happens, I'll be sent home, he finished, along with everyone else. Without thinking, Arya moved closer, her hand tightening around his. I don't want you to go, she admitted, the words feeling like both a confession and a betrayal. Jin gently touched her face, his fingers tracing the luminous patterns that swirled beneath her violet skin. Then help me understand your people. Help me find a way to bridge our worlds. It's not that simple, she whispered. There are factions in the court who believe humans should be subjugated, not treated as equals. They see your emotions as proof of inferiority. And what do you see? Jin asked, his eyes searching her. Arya's answer was interrupted by the sudden chime of her communication device. Your radiance. Kai's voice sounded urgent. Commander Rena requests your immediate presence in the war room. There's been an incident with the Earth delegation. As she pulled away from Jin, she saw the worry in his eyes. Whatever happens, he said, remember that not all strength looks the same. Arya straightened her shoulders, resuming the posture of a princess. I'll find you later, she promised. Be careful, Jin. The palace has eyes everywhere. As she hurried away, she realized with a mixture of terror and exhilaration that for the first time in her life, she was feeling everything her culture had forbidden: doubt, fear, and something else. Something warm and dangerous that grew stronger every time Jin Chen looked at her. Empire's shadow. The war room hummed with tension as Arya entered. Commander Rena stood rigidly by the holographic display, her chrome armor gleaming under the harsh lights. Her scarred face betrayed no emotion, but Arya had known her since childhood, enough to recognize the cold satisfaction in her eyes. Your radiance. Rena bowed slightly. Thank you for joining us so quickly. Emperor Thra sat at the head of the table. His silver eyes narrowed. Daughter, we have disturbing information. One of the humans has been accessing restricted data on our defensive capabilities. Arya maintained her composure, though her heart raced. Which human? Rena tapped the display. A surveillance image appeared showing a human figure in a corridor. Not your scientist, Rena said with a subtle emphasis that made Arya's skin prickle. The one called Isabel, their communications specialist. What evidence do we have? Arya asked carefully. A data breach originated from their quarters, one of the security ministers explained. Classified information about our planetary shield generators was accessed and transmitted. Arya frowned. Transmitted where? That's unclear. Rena interjected. But the intent is obvious. The humans are gathering intelligence in preparation for potential military action. Or Arya suggested, they're concerned about our intentions given the increasingly harsh terms we've proposed in the negotiations. Emperor Thra regarded his daughter with surprise. You sound sympathetic to them. I'm merely suggesting we consider all possibilities, Father. Arya replied. We invited them here to forge peace. Treating them as enemies ensures they will become exactly that. Rena stepped closer, her voice low. Your radiance, if I may speak freely. You've been spending considerable time with the human scientist. Is it possible your judgment has been compromised? The implied accusation hung in the air. Arya felt the eyes of every council member upon her. She drew herself up to her full height. My judgment is clear, Commander. Perhaps clearer than those who see threats in every shadow. I've studied human culture as part of my diplomatic training. Their approach to negotiations differs from ours. What appears as deception to us may simply be their way of building trust. Trust, Rena scoffed. They're barely beyond tribal warfare on their own planet. Emperor Thra raised his hand, silencing the commander. What do you propose, daughter? Let me speak with them, Arya said. If there has been a misunderstanding, I can clarify our concerns without escalation. After a long pause, Thra nodded. Very well. But Commander Rena will accompany you. And until this matter is resolved, the humans will be restricted to their quarters. Later, as Arya and Rena walked the corridor toward the diplomatic wing, Rena broke the silence. I've known you since you were a child. Your radiance, I taught you to wield a gravity blade before you could even manipulate light. Your point, Commander? Arya kept her gaze forward. I've seen how you look at the human scientist. Rena's voice held no accusation, only concern. And I've seen how he looks at you. Such attachments are dangerous not only to the Empire, but to you. Personally. Arya stopped walking. Are you monitoring me, Commander? Protecting you is my duty, Rena replied. These humans, they experience emotions differently. Their attachments are intense but fleeting. They don't live long enough to understand true loyalty. Perhaps, Arya said carefully. Their briefer lives give their emotions greater meaning, not less. They don't have the luxury of centuries to make connections. Rena studied her face. You've changed since they arrived. She lowered her voice. There are whispers in court. Your father's advisors are concerned his loyalty to you as his heir isn't stronger than his loyalty to Novastria. A chill ran through Arya. Is that a threat, Commander? A warning from someone who has always protected you. Rena's scarred face softened momentarily. End whatever this is with the human before others take notice. Be the heir Novastria needs. They resumed walking in silence. Arya's mind racing when they reached the diplomatic quarters. She saw Jin being escorted back to his room by guards. His eyes found hers filled with questions she couldn't answer. That night, unable to sleep, Arya slipped through the secret passages of the palace to Jin's quarters. The guard posted outside his. Totor was one of Rena's most loyal soldiers. There would be no bribing or distracting him. Instead, Arya used a rarely employed royal override to temporarily disable the security systems. She had exactly 3 minutes before the system would automatically reactivate. Jin was startled when she materialized in his room. "Arya, what's happening? They're saying Isabel is a spy." "Listen carefully," she whispered. "Commander Rena is pushing for expulsion of all humans at minimum imprisonment at worst. They're using this alleged data breach as justification." "It's not true," Jin insisted. "Isabel wouldn't." Arya placed her fingers gently against his lips. "I believe you, but belief isn't enough. I need proof." She pressed a small crystal into his palm. "This contains access to our security network. Find out what really happened." Jin closed his hand around the crystal, his fingers intertwining with hers. "This is treason for you, isn't it?" "Yes," she admitted. "But I can no longer stand by while my people's prejudice drives us to conflict." As the security system began to reactivate, she knew she had to leave but found herself unable to move away from him. Jin seemed to understand. Without words, he pulled her close, their foreheads touching. In the dim light, "Be careful," he whispered against her skin. "I couldn't bear it if anything happened to you." "Tomorrow," she promised. "Meet me in the ancestral garden at midnight. I'll find a way." As she slipped back through the passage, Arya knew. Commander Rena was right about one thing. She had indeed changed, but perhaps Novastria needed to change too. Heart's rebellion dawn broke over Novastria with an ominous red glow. Arya was summoned to the throne room to find her father surrounded by his most hawkish advisors. Commander Rena stood at his right hand, her face grim with triumph. "It is done," Emperor Thra announced. "The human called Jin Chen has been arrested for espionage. Evidence was found in his quarters connecting him to the data breach." Arya's heart froze. "What evidence?" Rena stepped forward. "A crystal containing access codes. To our security network, your radiance." Her eyes held Arya's, a clear message passing between them. Rena knew. This is a grave diplomatic incident. Thra continued. "The humans claim innocence, but the evidence speaks for itself. The Earth delegation will be expelled. Jin Chen will remain for trial." "And the punishment if found guilty?" Arya asked, though she already knew. "Death," Rena stated, "as our laws demand." That evening, Arya stood before her father in his private chambers. "You can't execute him," she said, abandoning all pretense of royal detachment. "This will destroy any hope of peace with Earth." "Peace?" Thra laughed bitterly. "They were never interested in peace, only our technology, our resources." "That's not true." Arya's voice rose. "You've never even tried to understand them." Thra studied his daughter. "This passion is unbecoming. You sound like a human. Perhaps that's not the insult you believe it to be." Arya straightened. "I love him, father." The silence that followed was deafening. "Then you are unfit to rule." Thra finally said, "Commander Rena was right. You've been compromised." "No." Arya stepped closer. "I've been awakened. What makes our empire great isn't our technology or our lifespan. It's our capacity for growth, for change. Yet we've remained static for millennia, clinging to prejudices that separate us from the galaxy. You would throw away your birthright for a human who will be dust in a century?" "I would choose love over power," Arya replied. "Every time." Stars reborn. The execution chamber was filled with the Novastrian elite come to witness the fate of the human spy. Jin stood proud, despite his chains, his eyes searching until they found Arya. The guards forced him to his knees as Emperor Thra began the formal sentencing. "For crimes against the Celestial Empire." Thra intoned, "Jin Chen of Earth, stop." Arya's voice rang out clear and strong. She walked forward through the stunned crowd. "This man is innocent. The security breach was engineered. By those who fear change, who would rather see war than peace. Rena moved to intercept her. Your radiance, you forget yourself. No, Commander. Arya stood her ground. For the first time, I remember who I am. She turned to address the gathered nobles. We call humans emotional as though it's a weakness. Yet look at what emotion has accomplished on Earth. Art, music, literature. Their passion drives them to create, to evolve, while we remain frozen in time. She moved to Jin's side, placing herself between him and the guards. I've accessed the true security logs. The breach came from within, from Commander Rena's private terminal. She has been pushing for war, believing humans a threat to our way of life. The chamber erupted in chaos. Emperor Thraw raised his hand for silence. Daughter, these are serious accusations. Check the records, father. Arya replied, I've already transmitted them to your personal console. As the guards surrounded Rena, Arya knelt beside Jin, freeing his hands. Their fingers intertwined violet against tan. I choose you, she whispered. I choose us. 3 cycles later, Arya stood on the observation deck of the Earth Novastrian Embassy, the first of its kind, a diplomatic vessel that would travel between worlds, fostering understanding. She was no longer a princess, having renounced her claim to the throne. Instead, she had become something new, an ambassador between species. Jin approached, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Having second thoughts? He asked. Arya turned in his embrace. Not one, she replied. My father will never fully understand, but he's trying. The treaty is signed. The first cultural exchange begins next month. And us? Jin smiled. What becomes of the princess and the scientist? Arya pressed, her forehead to his, a gesture that had become their own private ritual. We become something new, something neither world has seen before. As their lips met, Arya knew that in giving up a throne, she had gained a universe, and it had all begun with a single look that had crossed the stars to change 2 worlds forever.